Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive into the history of Iran's nuclear program, a story that spans decades, filled with ambition, secrecy, and global controversy. From its humble beginnings in the 1950s under the Shah's vision for a modern Iran, backed by the US, to the covert advancements and international standoffs of the 21st century. This journey takes us through revolutions, wars, sanctions, and high-stakes diplomacy. In this video, we'll unravel how Iran's nuclear aspiration evolved, why they sparked global tensions, and what it all means today. Buckle up for a fascinating ride through geopolitics and science. Let's get started. In 1957, Iran's nuclear program was initiated under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, driven by a vision to modernize the country and establish it as a regional power. This effort was catalyzed by the United States Atoms for Peace program, launched by President Dwight D. Eisenhower to promote peaceful nuclear technology globally as a counterbalance to nuclear proliferation fears during the Cold War. The U.S., seeking to strengthen ties with Iran as a strategic ally against Soviet influence in the Middle East, agreed to provide technical assistance and nuclear technology. As part of this cooperation, the U.S. supplied Iran with a 5-megawatt thermal MWT light water research reactor, which was installed at the newly established Tehran Nuclear Research Center (TNRC). This reactor, fueled by highly enriched uranium, provided by the U.S., was designed for research purposes, including training scientists and producing isotopes for medical and industrial use. The agreement also included U.S. support for training Iranian nuclear scientists and engineers, with many sent to American universities for advanced studies. Iran's nuclear ambitions at this stage were framed as civilian, focused on energy and scientific development, and were fully supported by Western powers. The 1957 deal marked Iran's entry into the global nuclear community, with the U.S. and its allies viewing Iran as a stable partner under the Shah's pro-Western regime. The program laid the groundwork for Iran's nuclear infrastructure, including the formation of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran (AEOI) in later years, to oversee nuclear activities. At this point, there were no indications of a military dimension to the program, and Iran's efforts were aligned with international norms, setting the stage for further nuclear cooperation. In the 1960s and 1970s. In 1963, Iran took a significant step in its nuclear program by signing the treaty banning nuclear weapon tests in the atmosphere, in outer space and underwater, commonly known as the Partial Test Ban Treaty (PTBT). This international agreement, driven by the United States, Soviet Union, and United Kingdom, aimed to curb the environmental and health risks of nuclear weapons testing by prohibiting tests in the atmosphere, underwater, and in outer space, while still allowing underground tests. Iran's decision to sign the treaty was part of its broader alignment with Western powers, particularly the United States under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's regime, which sought to position Iran as a modern, responsible member of the international community. At this stage, Iran's nuclear program, initiated in 1957 with U.S. support through the Atoms for Peace program, was focused on civilian applications, centered around the Tehran Nuclear Research Center and its 5-megawatt research reactor. Signing the PTBT signaled Iran's commitment to adhering to emerging global norms on nuclear activities, reinforcing its image as a non-nuclear weapons state. The treaty did not directly impact Iran's nascent nuclear program, which was still in its early development and lacked any known military dimension at the time. However, the act of signing aligned Iran with the non-proliferation goals of its Western allies, particularly the U.S., which continued to provide technical assistance and nuclear materials. This move also laid the groundwork for Iran's later accession to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT) in 1968, further embedding its nuclear activities within an international framework of oversight and cooperation. In 1967, Iran advanced its nuclear program by establishing the Tehran Nuclear Research Center (TNRC), a pivotal step in building its nuclear infrastructure. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's modernization drive, the TNRC, located at the University of Tehran, was set up to centralize Iran's nuclear research and development, leveraging the 5-megawatt research reactor provided by the United States in 1957. Through the Atoms for Peace program, the center, operated by the newly formed Atomic Energy Organization of Iran (AEOI), focused on training scientists, conducting nuclear research, and producing isotopes for medical and industrial purposes. The U.S. continued to supply highly enriched uranium (HOI) to fuel the reactor, and American technical assistance supported the training of Iranian nuclear experts, many of whom studied abroad. This period marked Iran's growing ambition to develop a robust civilian nuclear capability, with the Shah envisioning nuclear energy as a cornerstone of Iran's industrial and economic progress. In 1968, Iran further solidified its commitment to international nuclear norms by signing the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons (NPT) as a non-nuclear weapons state. The NPT, which Iran ratified in 1970, obligated the country to forego nuclear weapons development, accept International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) safeguards, and pursue nuclear technology for peaceful purposes in exchange for access to international cooperation. At this stage, Iran's nuclear activities were fully aligned with its Western allies, particularly the U.S., and there was no evidence of a military dimension. The 1967–1968 period was crucial in institutionalizing Iran's nuclear program, with the TNRC serving as its operational hub and the NPT signature reinforcing Iran's integration into the global non-proliferation framework, setting the stage for expanded nuclear ambitions in the 1970s. During the 1970s, Iran's nuclear program under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi expanded significantly, driven by ambitious plans to establish the country as a major regional power, with a robust nuclear energy infrastructure bolstered by rising oil revenues and strong Western support. The Shah announced plans to generate 23,000 megawatts of electricity through nuclear power by the 1990s, envisioning nuclear energy as a cornerstone of Iran's modernization and energy diversification. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran (AEOI), established to oversee nuclear activities, spearheaded this effort, building on the foundation of the Tehran Nuclear Research Center and its 5-megawatt research reactor, operational since 1967 with U.S. assistance. Iran signed contracts with Western nations for nuclear reactor construction, including a deal with Germany's Kraftwerk Union, a Siemens subsidiary, for 200-megawatt reactors at Bushehr, and an agreement with France's Framatome for 2 additional reactors. The U.S., France, and Germany also provided technical expertise, training, and nuclear fuel, with Iranian scientists studying abroad to build expertise. Iran began exploring uranium enrichment technologies, including laser enrichment, though it relied heavily on foreign technology and materials, lacking domestic capabilities for advanced nuclear processes. In 1975, Iran acquired a 10% stake in a French uranium enrichment plant, Eurodif, securing future fuel supplies. The Shah's government also initiated geological surveys to identify domestic uranium deposits, laying the groundwork for self-sufficiency. Iran adhered to its commitments under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT), signed in 1968, with International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) safeguards in place, and its program was viewed as civilian-focused, with no public evidence of weapons ambitions. However, some U.S. intelligence reports later speculated about the Shah's interest in keeping a nuclear weapons option open, though no concrete steps toward weaponization were confirmed. By the decade's end, the nuclear program faced setbacks due to financial strains and growing domestic opposition to the Shah's regime, culminating in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which halted progress and led to the withdrawal of Western partners, leaving projects like Bushehr incomplete. The 1970s marked the peak of Iran's nuclear aspiration under the Shah, characterized by international cooperation, rapid expansion, and a focus on civilian nuclear energy within the NPT framework. The 1980s marked a challenging period for Iran's nuclear program, shaped by the aftermath of the 1979 Islamic Revolution and the Iran-Iraq War 1980 to 1988. The revolution, which overthrew Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and established an Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini, disrupted the ambitious nuclear plans of the 1970s. Western partners, including the United States, Germany, and France, withdrew support, halting projects like the Bushehr nuclear power plant, which was left incomplete after German contractor Kraftwerk Union pulled out. The new regime initially showed limited interest in nuclear development, viewing the Shah's program as a symbol of Western influence, and prioritized revolutionary consolidation and war efforts against Iraq. By 1982, however, Iran revived its nuclear ambitions, driven by energy needs and a desire for technological self-reliance. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran (AEOI) was reactivated to rebuild the program, though it faced severe constraints due to severed Western ties, sanctions, and wartime resource shortages. Iran began small-scale uranium experiments and organized conferences to attract expertise, signaling a renewed commitment. In the mid-1980s, Iran turned to alternative sources for nuclear technology, most notably acquiring gas centrifuge designs for uranium enrichment through a clandestine network, led by Pakistani scientist Abdul Qadir Khan. This marked the beginning of Iran's pursuit of indigenous enrichment capabilities, a shift from its earlier reliance on foreign suppliers. The Khan network provided centrifuge blueprints and components, enabling Iran to start developing a covert enrichment program, though progress was slow due to technical limitations and war-related disruptions. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iraq's attacks on Iranian facilities, including the Bushehr site in 1987, further delayed nuclear efforts. Iran remained a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT), and its nuclear activities were ostensibly civilian, subject to International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) oversight. But suspicions about potential military intentions began to emerge in Western intelligence circles. By the late 1980s, Iran had laid the groundwork for a clandestine nuclear program, including early enrichment experiments. Though it lacked the infrastructure and expertise for significant progress, the decade was defined by a transition from the Shah's Western-backed, transparent program to a more secretive, self-reliant effort constrained by isolation and conflict. In the 1990s, Iran's nuclear program gained momentum as the Islamic Republic sought to rebuild and expand its capabilities following the disruptions of the 1980s. After the Iran-Iraq War ended in 1988, Iran, under President Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, prioritized economic reconstruction and technological self-sufficiency, with nuclear development as a key focus. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran (AEOI) intensified efforts to revive the program, constrained by Western sanctions and the withdrawal of earlier partners like the United States, Germany, and France. To overcome these barriers, Iran turned to new international allies, notably Russia and China, for nuclear technology and expertise. In 1995, Russia signed an agreement to complete the Bushehr nuclear power plant, which had been abandoned since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, with plans to construct two 1,000-megawatt reactors, marking a significant step toward operational nuclear power. China also provided assistance, including nuclear research reactors and uranium processing technology. Though it later scaled back cooperation under U.S. pressure, Iran continued to develop its clandestine uranium enrichment program, building on centrifuge technology acquired from the Abdul Qadir Khan network in the 1980s. By the late 1990s, Iran was constructing secret facilities, including the Natanz enrichment site, though these remained undisclosed to the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA). During this period, Iran reportedly initiated a covert nuclear weapons program, known as Project Ahmed, aimed at developing nuclear weapons capability. including research into uranium enrichment, warhead design, and delivery systems. This program, later detailed in documents seized by Israel in 2018, allegedly involved coordinated efforts across multiple sites. Though its full scope remains debated, Iran remained a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT), and its declared nuclear activities, such as the Bushehr project, were subject to IAEA inspections, presenting a civilian facade. However, the clandestine nature of enrichment efforts and suspected weapons research raised concerns among Western intelligence agencies, though these activities were not yet publicly exposed. Iran also explored domestic uranium mining and processing to reduce reliance on foreign fuel supplies. With facilities like the Saghand mine and Gain uranium mill under development, by the end of the decade, Iran had made significant strides in building a dual-track nuclear program publicly civilian, but with covert elements setting the stage for international scrutiny. In the early 2000s, when its secret facilities came to light, the 1990s were thus a period of quiet but critical expansion, marked by new partnerships, clandestine advancements, and growing suspicions about Iran's nuclear intentions. ***, the 2000s were a pivotal decade for Iran's nuclear program, marked by significant advancements, international exposure, and escalating tensions. Iran, under Presidents Mohammad Khatami and later Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, accelerated its nuclear efforts, focusing on uranium enrichment and expanding its infrastructure. The decade began with Iran continuing its covert nuclear activities, including the construction of the Natanz enrichment facility and the Fordo site, both undisclosed to the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA). These facilities, built on centrifuge technology, acquired from the Abdul Qadir Khan network in the 1980s, enabling Iran to enrich uranium to levels suitable for civilian reactors, but also raising concerns about potential weapons-grade enrichment. In 2002, the National Council of Resistance of Iran (NCRI), an opposition group, publicly revealed the existence of Natanz and a heavy water facility at Arak, triggering IAEA inspections and global scrutiny. The revelations confirmed Iran's failure to fully disclose its nuclear activities, violating its Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and PT safeguards obligations. In 2003, the IAEA reported undeclared uranium enrichment, prompting Iran to temporarily suspend enrichment activities under international pressure and engage in negotiations with the EU to free France, Germany, UK. During this period, Iran's covert Project Ahmed, a nuclear weapons program initiated in the 1990s, was reportedly halted in 2003, according to U.S. intelligence assessments. Though some Western sources later claimed residual weapons-related work continued covertly, by 2005, negotiations faltered, and Iran resumed enrichment at Natanz under Ahmadinejad's hardline administration, which prioritized nuclear self-sufficiency as a matter of national pride. The IAEA referred Iran to the UN Security Council in 2006, leading to multiple rounds of sanctions targeting its nuclear and missile programs. As Iran refused to halt enrichment, Iran expanded its centrifuge cascades at Natanz and began constructing the fortified Fordo enrichment site, revealed in 2009, further heightening suspicions of military intentions. Russia continued work on the Bushehr nuclear power plant, completed in 2011, providing Iran with its first operational reactor. Though under IAEA oversight and using Russian-supplied fuel, Iran also developed its domestic uranium mining and milling capabilities, with facilities like Saghand and Ardakan operational or nearing completion. Throughout the decade, Iran maintained that its program was for peaceful energy and medical purposes, consistent with its NPT rights, but Western nations, particularly the US and Israel, accused Iran of pursuing nuclear weapons, citing its secrecy and enrichment advancements. The 2000s saw Iran's nuclear program become a major geopolitical flashpoint, with cyber attacks like the Stuxnet virus attributed to the US and Israel, targeting Natanz in 2010, and ongoing diplomatic efforts failing to resolve the crisis. By the decade's end, Iran had significantly advanced its enrichment capacity, possessed thousands of centrifuges, and faced intensifying sanctions and isolation, setting the stage for negotiations leading to the 2015 nuclear deal.